Well, when you say it like that, boy, it sounds like I've spent a lot of my time talking, eating, sleeping, breathing Magento. I remember actually when I started doing the education, doing the developer course. I remember one night in my hotel room, I actually started dreaming in layout XML. Like those of you developers in the room will know what that's like. Right. So here we are, wrapping up a day. Want to thank each and every one of you for spending time here with us. Meet Magento Singapore. Thank you, the Renesas team, especially for all of the hard work that goes into these events. It's not when you show up at an event and it feels comfortable, you just can roll right in and start having the conversations, making business happen. An event that does that really does require a lot of work to just sort of, be the setting. So here I am talking about the future, and I wanted to actually really bring out and underscore this event here because, I think the future of Magento, it rests very much with activities like this. I don't have a clicker, so I don't know if I should be clicking or if I will be clicked wherefore. Thank you. We shall see. There we go. It's not often that I include lyrics in presentations, and it's not very often that I include lyrics from Bob Dylan, that famous American bard. But nothing seems more appropriate. There's a magazine out now. It's cleverly named Magazine magazine. It's being produced by Strix, which is a Polish SI, but they very graciously allowed the Magento Association to sort of be represented in the magazine. I have a regular column in there, and you can get it online. There actually are hard copies as well. I talk about this ecosystem's capacity to engage, thrive, and even create change. So earlier today, I was having a conversation with one of you fantastically handsome people in the audience about how Magento's success was really, I think its success was steeped in open source. The fact that people can extend the system, that the system is so open for extension, has allowed us as innovators, has allowed this ingenious ecosystem to help us meet and sometimes even create changing consumer behavior over time. Right? It's a challenge. It's a challenge for the closed platforms or the SaaS platforms that they have to respond to an overall market and prioritize some features for all of their customers, and then engineer and build that out. So they may be lagging 6 months behind what could be the next greatest trend. Perfect example of this is actually when Creativity surprised us a couple years ago by hitting us with a pull request the day that the Amazon one-click checkout patent expired. We literally had that feature in the code base the next day. Just one of many examples. But throughout this more than 10-year run of this platform, through all the changes, we had the eBay days, the dark ages, as I'm fond of calling them. Then we've had a hell of a run under Premiere, and now we're at Adobe. I think we're really faced with some critical change. I think we're very lucky to have Karen Baker's thoughts, and the fact that you still care after all these years is a strong indication of that. So, I want to jump into the future, but I want to do that first by reminiscing on our recent recent past. So what we have, what we see, and those of you who've been in this region, especially doing Magento in this region for any amount of time, like 4 years ago, it's like, hey, there's Ben, right? And our APAC strategy was, let's have someone in California because that's kind of close. And now you see here today, I mean, hell, when I looked at the agenda, I didn't have any idea we had that many people here. I mean, it's nice that we have an Adobe office, right? That we have our colleagues and that we're growing this business out. But we have so much expansion in APAC. I mean, we've got Vikrant here from our office in Bangalore, 25 and growing up to 50, I think you said. That's right. Yes. So. And then of course we have people here in Singapore. We have staff. So we and this pattern of investment in markets that aren't the U.S. That's been a trend, a consistent trend, really since the Primera days. Primera was very good at at letting our leadership say, "Hey, this is an opportunity. We just need the investment." And they would give us the money, and we would hire the people. And it's made a difference. It's made a material difference, I think, here in APAC, and it's made a hell of a difference in Europe as well. So that international investment, I think, dovetails nicely with the increasing cross-border tendencies that businesses have. As businesses have become dominant, successful in their own market, it makes sense that they go cross-border. It's great to have, in fact, that's why it's great to have all of these alliances and actually vendors like Partial Perform, who help smooth out some of these edges. I know we're pretty lucky in the U.S. with logistics, but you get out of some of these markets, and it really is fascinating. All of the hands, literal and virtual, that something has to go through in order for a customer to get what he or she wants. Product investment. You've seen a lot of product investment from us. We have bought functionality. We have built functionality, and then of course with our community engineering team, we've been able to really harness the power of the ecosystem to deliver things more rapidly than I think we ever did. And those investments are not cheap, but absolutely worth it. And that kind of investment, it gives us, we have more product, more channels for engaging. It gives us more insight. So actually back to community engineering, it's one of my favorite stories to tell. I brag about it like I'm doing it, but I didn't do it. But if you think about it, who writes the best code? It's a person that has to deal with the area, the problem that they're coding against, right? So those insights, it could be something as alluring as like totals calculation, right? Any developer in here ever get into custom totals in Magento? These are the things that break out when you're looking at the checkout. You have a separate line for tax. You have overall, you might have a discount. There's a tremendous amount of like logical power that has to go into that. And so the person that is writing that code, now if that's an engineer working for us, but we're not working directly for merchants, we might not write those things either the best way or the best way that is then itself extensible. So this is one of the real benefits of community engineering, the fact that we're allowing people that are experts in this domain to really write the best code that could be written for these problems. And this has given us an empowered community. There is, I think that if I put on my ecosystem hat, my Ben before he started getting a Magento paycheck hat, we have more, in some ways, more access and more ability to influence things than we ever did. Now, I don't want to belie some of the points that Karen was making earlier, though, where this is all predicated on and only successful if we have an open dialogue, especially as Magento becomes more and more an Adobe property. Speaking of Adobe, wow, mean, that was quite a shock. It was actually my boss that was doing the deal for well over a year, and Sherry and I found out literally 5 minutes before the rest of the world. I don't know that there was ever been a better kept secret at Magento. Adobe has proved itself to be, I can say, a great employer. A lot of the people at Adobe have been there 10, 15, some of them over 30 years. And a lot of people come in via acquisitions and stay. I mean, that doesn't happen accidentally. It's a good company. And Adobe have proved themselves to be very, very diligent as they brought Magento in. And I think our leadership, especially folks like Leonard and the very wonderful Mark Lavelle, did a good job of explaining to Adobe that like this ecosystem, part of what we have here in this room is the real value proposition of Magento. So they have been diligent, but things are moving internally. You will continue to see Magento become more and more the product in the portfolio, and you'll see that portfolio move towards Magento as well. Now, what Adobe does give us is a tremendous data apparatus, right? We have data scientists, we have patents, and all sorts of interesting things happening in this company that we didn't really have as a privately held entity. And you will see the influence of these other products, these other channels, these other engagements, whatever you want to call them, from Adobe. You will continue to see that influence the Magento offering. It'll influence how we talk about the product. It's going to influence how the merchants that we're engaging with, right? And then you've seen, I think one of the things of which I am most proud is the very long and arduous work that's gone into something called Magento Association. Has anyone here heard of Magento Association? I'm just curious. Okay, a few of us. Okay, good. Well, now, if I were to ask the question again, you could all raise your hands. Magento Association is an independent nonprofit trade association that was set up by Magento, now Adobe, gets some funding every year. I get to be on the board. I'm one of the 9 board members because, well, we paid a lot of money to set it up. But I'm the only direct voice, voting personality from Magento that's on the board. Everyone else has come from the community. It was intentionally set up as an independent place to preserve Meet Magento. That was the origination of this. Was that we knew that the guys behind Meet Magento, from the Meet Magento Association, which was a nonprofit set up in Germany, they were kind of moving away, and we wanted to make sure that Meet Magento, as valuable as it is around the world, would be able to continue. So that's why my former boss, Mark Leonard, set about making sure that this would be funded. But I think, if any of you have ever met Mark Leonard, he's, like we would say in Boston, he's wicked smart. He sees things long before I think most people in the world do. And that's why he's been working, in these kind of strategy roles. He was at PayPal as their head of strategy for years, and then fortunately, Lavelle brought him in, and I think he knew that something like Adobe was coming, and so he wanted. I could be completely wrong about this, but I get to talk about it now because he used to wear the vests, and now I get to wear the vest because he's not here anymore. I think he saw this coming, and he knew that eventually Adobe, I think, is going to need a place to put Magento. Because I think Adobe wants to talk about the Adobe Commerce story, and I think that's right, and I think that's proper. I think Magento is a great beginning to that story, but I think eventually we will see a divergence between Adobe Commerce and the Magento story. I could be 100% wrong on this. I didn't go to business school. I have a psychology degree. I was a bartender. That's what you do with a psychology degree, by the way, if you don't go to if you don't get your master's. So that's my take. That's my best guess. I may get in a whole lot of trouble for saying this. This is being recorded. Richard here, he can report back to the mothership in San Jose. But I don't think I'm wrong. And I'm not up here for the purpose of being right, of sounding right. I'm here because I think it's essential that you all realize this. I think it's essential for you all to realize this because I think we all know, that we have something very, very special. There is something absolutely magical about Magento. When you think about a UCLA dropout, or a couple of UCLA dropouts, I don't remember where Yoav went, and they were running an agency, and they hit upon this problem. They knew that there was an opportunity in open source. They knew that the world needed an extensible, open platform. And they built Magento. And that aspirational project, drives over $150 billion a year in merchandise volume, powers that. It's a $5 billion a year service economy, the business of being in the Magento business. So the agencies here, the vendors here, all of this money that flows around this ecosystem, these are mortgages, these are retirement funds, these are vacations taken. Businesses built, all of that rests on this thing we have called Magento. And it's something that I care deeply about. It's a profound responsibility on our part. Like when we screw up, we really screw up for a lot of people, right? And when we succeed, it's the better way to talk about it. When we succeed well for a lot of people. So I think that we can be comfortable that Magento will remain supported by Adobe for several years. I think the nature of that support will change over the course of these years, and I think that's okay. But I just want us to all plan on this together. So I think as that shift happens, then we, the ecosystem, end up with even more power, more influence, because Adobe is going to increasingly externalize the Magento property. I have a feeling that you one day might see, we'll see if we get there, we're not there yet, you might see Magento as a product being run underneath the Magento Association. There's absolute 100% precedent for this. Drupal, another popular PHP framework, has been ascendant, has been built in this manner for years. The Python language, run via a foundation. And there are several other examples out there as well. So this will be a little bit different, right? I think as an engineering and architecture company, Adobe will continue to will continue to guide, maybe even make the final decisions about what gets developed. But I think you're going to see that a lot of that energy and effort and coordination happening underneath something like the association. And because of that, that will give more opportunity to influence, more opportunity to take Magento where we think it needs to go. And I say we. It's very confusing when I say we. You don't know if I'm wearing my Magento hat, my Adobe hat, my Magento Association hat, or my ecosystem hat. But in this case, I mean the ecosystem. I think we decide it together. This has always been a collaborative effort. So I will tell you that there are a few ways that you can be involved. Who here is familiar with community engineering at Magento? A few of us. Okay. This guy Alexi right here. He engineers some community stuff. Community engineering was just a brilliant, just a stroke of genius. It was us taking, some of the best people in our company and a guy named Max to really power and facilitate open source contribution. And it has given us, We actually have an entirely new stock architecture, among hundreds of fixes. So up to now, like what you see is with our latest releases, most of that code is coming from the ecosystem. We're not writing it. We're just facilitating. You can actually become directly involved easily with community engineering. We have guides and documentation, we have videos, and we tell the stories. You can be in Munich during Oktoberfest and coding in your lederhosen. I'll be there with my lederhosen. Tracy's going to have her dirndl. You can also see what we're up to, what we're thinking, what we're planning. If you go to GitHub, right? So if you go to GitHub and you go under our account, conveniently named Magento, you will find several repositories. Now there you'll find the Magento codebase, but you'll also find a couple of other really interesting repositories. One is called Backlog, and this is where you can see kind of our product thinking, our product planning. And the conversations that are happening there, they're happening in the open intentionally. Then you can wander over to /Magento/architecture. That's where you can see some of the evidence that I'm using to make these conjectures that I'm making today. That's where you get the very tall and handsome Anton Krill and his team of crackpot architects. Anton's a very funny Ukrainian. It's a rare quantity. They have these conversations, these architectural conversations, in public. They're talking to each other, but they're doing it under a public forum so that you can follow along at home and so that you can participate. And when it comes down to it, Magento is a participatory sport, and contributions are not just code. Contributions are writing blog posts. Contributions are being here. Contributions are chiming in on architectural discussions. But you can see some of the directions that we're headed. I'll give you a clue: microservices. You may not even see a PHP run Magento in a few years. I don't know. I was barely a programmer to begin with, so I don't think I'll make the jump to Java. That is one place where you can become involved. Another fantastic place, we hope, for you to be involved is with the Magento Association. Membership, it's the very low price of free right now. So I encourage you, by the way, it will make me look very good if each and every one of you goes here and signs up. It's actually really important because APAC representation is really, really difficult for us. Like we're very America's, particularly North America and Eurocentric community, but there's this whole other side of the globe, who knew, that deserves representation. And at our best, we really are engaging with the developers who are engaging with the markets and the verticals that are relevant here in this region. The association, its simple intent beyond preserving Meet Magento is to help ensure the long-term viability of this ecosystem. And I think we can only do that with complete representation. And complete representation doesn't mean just geographies. It also means job roles. So we're not looking for just developers. We want store admins. We want merchants to be part of the discussion. Merchants haven't been really as involved in this kind of ecosystem events and feedback as I think they should be. So the association should be a home for that. Our goal is that it is a powerful voice for lobbying Magento, Adobe, without concern about commercial relationship, right? So it doesn't matter that you're just using open source, that we aren't making money directly off of you. I mean, I can talk about this stuff because I don't have to sell anything, right? But, sometimes our commercial interests might hold sway in product discussions. But very often, if we get down to the crux of the matter and we're being honest with ourselves, we would end up making better decisions if we just let some of those commercial interests go to the side. That's what the association is here for. So again, I encourage you, if you would, do me the favor of just signing up. There's no commitment right now, but we will be shortly sending out volunteer opportunities, chances for you to be involved, to have a say, and if you are so inclined, to give back. Another way to be involved in our world is the Innovation Lab. We actually just opened up or are just opening up the latest round. So if you go to this URL, what you can just see are a bunch of aspirational things. They're not products yet, but interesting experiences. I know some of you in this room actually work for companies that have had some projects selected as innovations. I mean, there's been some really cool stuff out there, like AI, AR, VR, the ability to pull up a store catalog on your phone and then say, oh yeah, I want that. And then you walk into the store and your phone tells you where it is, what aisle it's on, where it is on the shelf. Some really, really neat experiences. I get inspired by seeing these things in real life. So this is a place where you can draw inspiration from, or hopefully inspire others to really get out there and dig in and just throw a couple of technologies together, except not blockchain. I'm tired of seeing blockchain stuff. I hope one day blockchain will solve some problem. A lot of people will be happy. What else? Well, I suppose I should say, before I click over to my Q&A slide, I suppose I should leave you with some inspirational words. It just so happens I have a slide for that. And if you're wondering yourself what this means, well, I think it means precisely what it says. It feels almost unfair that I'm up here asking you all to give more of your time, more of your energy, more of your feedback. But the reality is, we're working with this stuff every day, and every person in here has something valuable to contribute. That I learned when I was doing in my Magento U days. Come in. There was never a time that someone would ask a question where it was a bad question, and that example has stuck with me. So any contribution that you can make, any voice that you can raise in public, any conversation that you can have with a peer, any friend that you have that you can bring over into our ecosystem, please do that. And then encourage them to remain involved. That's the business of open source. Open source is open exchange. And the only other ingredient that's required to make that work is energy. And we're here to facilitate that as much as you can. Are there any questions? Have I presented that complete of a picture? Because I certainly don't know what's going to happen. Thank you. And now I'd like to get to my real presentation. I guess I should, well, that's kind of it.